My wife called me emotionally bankrupt after 22 years of marriage and left me for our son's mentor, taking all our savings with her. She planned to leave me on the street and sell our house to move to Vegas. But she forgot one tiny detail in the paperwork from 30 years ago. The house belongs to us, but the land underneath it belongs only to me. And I am going to use that to teach her a lesson she will never forget. Right now, I am sitting in my Ford pickup in the parking lot of some cheap motel on the outskirts of Denver. It is 3 in the morning, and next to me on the passenger seat is a bag of dirty laundry and a box of tools. 5 minutes ago, I did probably the most terrible thing a father can do. I blocked my son's number. Danny, my boy, sent me a photo from his campus in California. He is smiling there, tanned, happy, holding some trophy. I looked at that screen, and I felt physically sick. I could not answer him. I could not write that I am proud of him because my hands were shaking with rage and shame. I blocked him not because I stopped loving him, but because if I hear his voice right now, I will just break. I will dump the whole truth on him about his mother. I will tell him that his perfect family, which he is so proud of, has burned to the ground, and his mother, who cried on his shoulder when saying goodbye, was sleeping with his so-called mentor that very same evening. I do not want to destroy his world while he is taking his exams. But Jennifer destroyed my world completely, and it seems she got some kind of sadistic pleasure from it. Damn it, I am 45 years old. I am a grown man, I have my own construction company, I have solved problems my whole life, I built houses, I was a Stonewall. And now I am smearing tears over the steering wheel like some teenager. I am trying to understand at what moment my life turned into this hell. It started not even with the cheating. It started with the silence in the house. Update. A little backstory so you understand what an idiot I am. 4 months ago, we took Danny to college. It was a hard day. I am not ashamed to admit that when we were driving back, I was not myself. For 18 years I was a dad first and foremost. I coached his baseball team, taught him woodworking in the garage, we did everything together. And so we returned to an empty house, where his room still smells like his deodorant, and it just hits me. I expected Jen to support me. We are supposed to be a team, 22 years together. I thought we would hug, open some wine, and get used to living for ourselves. But Jennifer acted as if she had dropped dead weight. She looked at my sour face and declared that I was acting pathetic. She said she needs a man, not a wimp, and that I am suffocating her with my depression. She declared that Danny left, and now she can finally live for herself, while I am dragging her down with my whining. In that moment, I felt guilty. I actually thought that maybe I was overreacting and needed to pull myself together. I even apologized to her for my feelings. Now I understand that was the first crack. That was when she realized she could wipe her feet on me, and I would ask for forgiveness. After our son left, my wife, a successful realtor, seemed to lose her mind. She started disappearing at the gym for 3 hours a day, completely changed her wardrobe to some revealing outfits that she used to consider vulgar. The whole house was soaked in her new expensive perfume, Santal 33. She started calling me roommate. Literally. She could walk past me in the kitchen and toss out that the roommate forgot to take out the trash again or that the roommate is breathing too loud. I tried to keep up. I worked like a dog to pay for her new wants, her beauticians, and trips to some personal growth seminars. I thought she was having a midlife crisis and I just needed to be there and endure it. What a blind donkey I was. And then Scott appeared. 3 months ago at dinner, Jen, all glowing, announced that she found a mentor for our son. Supposedly this is some genius investor from California, her client, who will help Danny build connections in Silicon Valley. She showed me his photo. Typical successful success, white teeth, a suit that costs more than my car. Jen said he agreed to work with Danny for only $2,000 a month as a favor to a friend. I, like the biggest fool, agreed. We even had a Zoom call, and I personally thanked the Scott for looking after my boy. I thanked the man who, as it turned out, was already sleeping with my wife and planning how to squeeze every last penny out of me. Scott looked at me from the screen with such a condescending little smile and said that I build houses with my hands and that is very cute, but he and Danny will build empires with their heads. That word cute stung me then, but I stayed silent for the sake of my son. The climax happened yesterday. It was our anniversary. I booked a table at an expensive steakhouse, put on a suit, bought her a gold bracelet. I sat there like a fool and waited for her for a whole hour. She arrived, did not even apologize, ordered the most expensive wine, and looked at me like I was empty space. When I handed her the gift, she did not even open the box. She just pushed it away with her finger and said we need to talk. She stated that she had outgrown this marriage. Said she looks at me and feels nothing but boredom. That I am stuck in the past with my wood scraps, and she needs scale. And then she delivered a phrase I will not forget until I die. She said that I am emotionally bankrupt and she is simply reinvesting her happiness into a more promising asset. I asked what Scott had to do with this. She laughed in my face. She said Scott is her soulmate, that he understands her ambitions, and that the sex with him is something we never had even 20 years ago. I was shaking. I told her we would divorce and split everything 50-50, that I would not give her a cent more than required by law. She looked at me with such pity, as if I were a mentally challenged child, and advised me to check the accounts before making demands. She stood up, threw her napkin on the table, and left, leaving me with a $400 check and a shattered life. I did not go after her. I rushed home while she was gone, and the first thing I did was log into our online banking. She had not changed the password, apparently thinking I was too stupid for that. When I saw the numbers, my vision went dark. In our savings account, where the money for retirement and expanding my business was kept, there was $432 left. Everything else was gone. Hundreds of thousands of dollars over the last 6 months flew away to the accounts of some shady firms, consulting centers, and, of course, to Scott's accounts. She was not just cheating on me. She was methodically, month after month, funding her new beautiful life with her lover using my money. I went into her old iPad that was lying around in the office. She had not even logged out of her email. And what I found there was worse than any pornography. There was correspondence with her lawyer, started 6 months ago, long before Danny left. They discussed how to move assets so that I would be left with nothing in the divorce. They planned this coldly and calculatedly while she smiled at me over breakfast. But the last email from Scott, which arrived this morning, finished me off completely. He wrote to her that this loser, meaning me, would suspect nothing, and that as soon as I sign the papers, they will sell the house and bail to Vegas. But the scariest part was at the end. Scott wrote that he is taking care of Danny, that the kid is eating out of his hand and will be completely on their side. They want to take away not just my money and house. They want to take my son. To turn me into a loser in his eyes, and make this con artist a hero. I sat before the screen in the dark office, and something inside me died. I stopped crying. I stopped pitying myself. In place of the pain came a cold, icy calculation. I heard her Lexus pull up to the house, but I did not start a scandal. I just took my tools, got in my car, and drove to this motel. Jen thinks I am boring and predictable. She thinks I will now beg her to return or just drink myself to death. But she forgot one little detail. A tiny nuance that did not come up in the correspondence with her expensive lawyers. The house they dream of selling stands on land that technically does not belong to us. It is land from my grandfather's trust, and I am the only one with signature authority. Without my signature, their plan is worth no more than the toilet paper they use. I am sitting here in this hole, preparing to strike back. This will not be revenge. This will be justice. It has been 12 hours since I ran away from my own house. I am still in this motel, and the coffee here tastes like battery acid, but my head is working surprisingly clear. I know many of you in the comments will probably ask why I just ran, why I did not stay and cause a scene, why I did not throw that Scott off my porch. Believe me, I wanted to. I wanted to smear his polished face all over my oak flooring. But I am a builder, and I know one rule. You cannot start demolition until you disconnect the electricity, otherwise the shock will just kill you. If I had snapped last night, the police would have arrived. Jen surely would have played the role of the frightened victim of a domestic tyrant, Scott would have confirmed her words, and I would have spent the night in a cell, losing any advantage. So instead, I vanished. I became a ghost. And the silence is what scares them the most right now. In the morning, I called Mike. Mike is my high school friend. We used to ride bikes together back in the day, only I went into construction and he became a criminal defense lawyer. He is not the kind of lawyer who wears expensive suits and sits in a glass office. Mike is a pit bull in human form. He handles the messiest divorces and knows how to destroy people in court. We met at a diner away from downtown. I looked terrible, unshaven, in wrinkled clothes, but when I laid out the printouts of the messages and bank statements in front of him, his face became very serious. I told him everything. About Danny, about the emotional bankruptcy, about the empty accounts, and about Scott. Mike was silent for 5 minutes, just flipping through papers, chewing on a toothpick and occasionally shaking his head. Then he looked at me and said that I am an idiot. He said it without malice, just as a fact. He stated that I had been the nice guy for too long in a world where nice guys finish in the dump. Mike explained to me that what Jen did is not just adultery, but deliberate embezzlement of family assets and fraud. But the most interesting part started when I mentioned my grandfather's trust. Mike's eyes lit up. He asked me to repeat the terms of the land ownership word for word. I explained that my grandfather was paranoid of the old school and did not trust banks or wives. He put the land our house stands on into an irrevocable land trust, where the only beneficiary listed is me, and the trustee is his old law firm. The house, the structure itself, belongs to Jen and me, but the land underneath it does not. Mike started laughing. At first quietly, and then so loudly that people started turning around. He said that this changes absolutely everything. Under state law, if a structure is on someone else's land without a long-term lease agreement, the landowner can demand demolition or dictate any terms of access. This means that Jen and Scott are sitting in a house they cannot sell. No bank will give a mortgage to a buyer for a house without the land. Technically, their plan to sell the house and leave for Vegas was dead before it was born. They were just too busy with their greed to check property records from 30 years ago. While we sat in the diner, Mike ran this Scott through his databases. It took him 15 minutes. It turned out that our great investor from Silicon Valley is a run-of-the-mill con artist with 2 suspended sentences for fraud in Florida. His real name is not even Scott, he changed it 5 years ago. He works a Ponzi scheme, worming his way into the trust of middle-aged women who feel undervalued in their marriages. He convinces them to invest in non-existent startups or luxury real estate, and then disappears. Jennifer thinks she is a predator who found her equal, but in reality, she is just another victim being gutted. Those $50,000 she transferred ostensibly for a condo in Vegas are likely already lost in a casino or moved offshore. The funniest thing is that I did not even feel pity. Mike asked me if I wanted to warn her. I remembered her cold look in the restaurant, remembered how she called me bankrupt, how she was ready to give our son to the school for the sake of her new life. I told Mike that I do not want to save her. I want her to drink this cup to the bottom. I want her to realize the depth of her mistake when she is standing on the ruins of her life. At that moment my phone came alive. It was Jen. First came the text messages. She asked where I was and why I did not sleep at home. The tone was aggressively caring. She wrote that she was worried, that I was acting irrationally and scaring her. Then came the threats. She wrote that if I did not show up by evening, she would file a missing person report with the police and tell everyone that I was having a nervous breakdown and was a danger to myself. She is trying to seize control of the situation, to paint me as crazy so that Scott can manage our affairs in peace. She even sent a message that Danny called her asking about me, and that she does not know what to tell him yet, hinting that she will tell him something nasty if I do not return and be an obedient dog. Mike read these messages and said that we need to give them enough rope. Let them think I am broken. Let them think I got scared and ran away to lick my wounds. Our strategy is total radio silence. We will not stop them from listing the house for sale. We will let them find a buyer, sign preliminary contracts, take deposits. We will let Jennifer spend the money she does not have, counting on future profits. We will wait for that very moment when they are popping the champagne to celebrate the victory. And that is when, one day before closing, I will appear. Right now I am moving back to my workshop. I will live there, sleep on a cot in the office above the shop. I need to work. Working with my hands has always helped me get my thoughts in order. I will plane wood, breathe in sawdust, and wait. Jennifer thinks she has outgrown me, that I am a boring carpenter. But she forgot that a carpenter is someone who builds the frame. And a carpenter is someone who can take that frame apart by pulling just one load-bearing nail. I feel strangely calm. As if I am watching a car crash in slow motion, only my wife is behind the wheel, and I am standing on the curb holding the traffic light remote. Update. 1 week has passed. They are moving fast, even faster than Mike and I anticipated. Yesterday I saw our house on the real estate agency website where Jen works. She listed it for sale at a price above market, marked for urgent sale. In the photos, my things are already gone from the living room. My favorite leather chair disappeared, replaced by some trendy white poof. The family photos are gone from the walls too. Now it is just a faceless, sterile house ready for a new life. They even hired a stager to rearrange the furniture. I look at these photos and do not recognize the place where I lived for 20 years. It hurts, I will not lie. But the pain dulls when I see how much of a rush they are in. Mike found out one more detail that makes my hair stand on end. It turns out Scott convinced Jennifer to take out a bridge loan against her share of the house equity at insane interest rates. Apparently, he needs cash urgently to cover old debts before his pyramid collapses. He is feeding her lies that this money is needed for a super profitable investment that will close in a month and bring 200% returns. And she, my smart, cynical wife who always checked every receipt at the supermarket, signed those papers. She got into debt up to her eyeballs, betting on a house she cannot legally sell. Tonight Danny was supposed to call. I unlocked his number for a couple of minutes just to check if he had texted. There was one message. Dad, Mom says you went to the mountains to think. Are you okay? Call me when you can. I almost broke down crying looking at that text. She is lying to him. She is creating an alibi for me as a crazy hermit. I blocked him again. I am sorry, son. It is not time yet. Soon you will know everything, but not from me, but from the news. Tomorrow they have an open house for buyers. Mike says we will strike immediately after they accept the best offer. The clock is ticking, Jen. Enjoy your Santal while you can. Update. It has been another 3 days, and I feel like a sniper lying in wait, waiting for the target to appear in the crosshairs. Everything happened exactly as Mike predicted, only even faster and dirtier. Jennifer and her pocket alpha male Scott accepted an offer to buy the house. Buyers were found instantly, some young tech couple from California looking for a quiet place in the mountains. They offered a price above market and, most importantly for Jen, cash payment with a closing in 2 weeks. I found out about this not from my wife, of course. I found out because I received an automated email notification from our security system, which Jen forgot to reset. She turned off the cameras in the bedroom, but left the smart doorbell on, and I heard her squealing with joy on the porch, seeing off the realtor for the buyers. She thought she won. She was probably already mentally spending that money, booking tickets to Vegas, and choosing the leather color for a new Mercedes. She even sent me a text, the first one in a week, full of fake sympathy. She wrote that she understands how hard it is for me, but life goes on, and that they found buyers who will love our house just as much as we did. She asked me to just sign the documents remotely, through the electronic system, so as not to traumatize each other with a meeting. What a cynical creature she is. She wanted me to sign my own death warrant without even looking her in the eye. I called Mike and said it was time. We did not sign anything. Instead, Mike sent an official letter to the title company that was supposed to ensure the deal, and a copy to the realtor representing the buyers. The letter was only 2 pages long. The first was a copy of the incorporation documents of my grandfather's land trust, dated 1980. The second was a notice that I, as the sole beneficiary of the trust, do not consent to the transfer of land lease rights and demand the immediate cessation of any actions with real estate located on my lot. Simply put, we informed the buyers that they can buy the house, but it will hang in the air, because the land underneath it does not belong to them, and I can put up a fence right in front of their front door at any moment. The effect was instantaneous, like a vacuum bomb explosion. An hour later, the buyer's realtor called me, stuttering and apologizing. He said they were immediately withdrawing the offer. No one in their right mind would buy a house with such a legal encumbrance. The deal Jen and Scott bet everything on collapsed in 60 minutes. And an hour later, real hell began. I was sitting in my shop, sanding a piece of cherry wood for a new staircase, when I heard the screech of brakes on gravel. It was not Jen. It was a black G-Wagon that Scott apparently rented to show off. The door to my shop flew open with such a crash that a can of varnish fell off the workbench. Jen flew in. I have never seen her like this. Her perfect hair was messy, her face was covered in red blotches, and there was pure madness in her eyes. Scott walked in behind her, puffed up like a turkey in his tight t-shirt, trying to look threatening. Jen started screaming from the doorway. She did not ask how I was. She just screamed that I destroyed her life, that I am a vengeful loser who cannot let go of the past. She shouted that I forged the documents, that no grandfather's land exists, that she would sue me for sabotaging the deal. I calmly turned off the sander, blew the sawdust off the workbench, and looked at her. In that moment, I realized I did not love her anymore. Of the woman I lived with for 20 years, only a shell remained, filled with greed and malice. I told her the documents were real. I reminded her how 20 years ago, when we first got married and were building this house, my grandfather warned her that the land would stay in the family. She laughed then and said she did not care, as long as there was a nice view. Apparently, she listened to me then just as attentively as she does now. I explained to her that without my signature, she would not sell even a doghouse on this lot. And then Scott entered the conversation. That was his fatal mistake. He walked right up to me, invading my personal space, and poked a finger in my chest. He reeked of expensive cologne and fear. He started speaking in his staged coach voice, saying I did not understand who I was messing with, that he had connections and they would grind me into dust. He called me a pathetic carpenter who should know his place. You know, I really am a carpenter. I have been working with my hands for 25 years. I haul lumber, I drive piles, my hands are vices. When he poked me the second time, I did not hit him. I did not want to dirty my hands on his face. I just grabbed his wrist and squeezed. I saw his eyes go wide with pain and surprise. Then I grabbed him by the collar of his fancy shirt and just dragged him to the exit like a bag of trash. He tried to dig his feet in, mumbled something, but you cannot argue with physics. I threw him out the door, right into the mud, where I have the rainwater drain. Jen screeched that she would call the police. I turned to her and told her to call. At the same time, she could tell the cops about the fraud with the bridge loan she took out against the house that does not belong to her. I saw the color drain from her face. That was the moment of truth. She realized I knew about the loan. She realized the deal fell through, there is no money, and the interest on the loan starts ticking tomorrow, and she has nothing to pay with because all our accounts are empty. Scott got up from the ground, brushing off his designer jeans. All his gloss was gone. He looked pathetic and scared. And do you know what he did? He did not rush to defend my wife. He did not fight for her honor. He just muttered that I was a psychopath, got into his rented Jeep, and started honking at Jen to get in the car faster. He was rushing her because he realized things were getting hot. Jen looked at me. For a second, something human flickered in her eyes. Maybe fear. Maybe the realization of what she had done. She quietly asked what I was going to do. I answered that I was going to finish the staircase and advised her to find a good lawyer, because Mike is already preparing a lawsuit for embezzlement of family funds and fraud. I told her to get off my land. She ran out of the shop, got in with Scott, and they drove away. Left alone, I did not feel the joy of victory. My hands were shaking a little from adrenaline, but inside there was emptiness. I understood that this was not the end yet. Jen is panicking now, and a rat cornered bites the hardest. But most importantly, Scott started getting nervous. I saw it in his shifting eyes. He realized there would be no easy money here, but there would be a criminal case. And people like Scott do not save drowning mistresses. They use them as life jackets to stay afloat themselves. 2 days have passed since the skirmish in the workshop. The silence is becoming deafening. Jen does not text or call. Mike says this is the calm before the storm, but I think it is the sound of dominoes starting to fall. This morning Danny called me. He sounded worried. He said Mom called him drunk in the middle of the night crying, saying Dad went crazy and wants to leave them on the street. Danny asked me directly, Dad, what is going on? Why does Mom say you stole her future? I had to make the hardest choice. I could not lie to my son anymore and keep him in the dark, allowing Jen to poison his brain. I told him I could not discuss details over the phone, but I bought him a plane ticket home for this weekend. I said, Son, just come. I will show you the documents, and you will decide for yourself. I will not turn you against your mother, I will just give you the facts. Danny was silent for a moment and agreed. He is a smart kid, he senses when he is being lied to and when he is being told the truth. Meanwhile, Mike dug up the final piece of dirt on Scott. It turns out our investment guru is under investigation in the state of Nevada for a similar real estate scheme. He has a ban on financial activities, which he violated by taking money from Jen. Mike has already contacted the prosecutor in Nevada and passed them information about Scott's whereabouts and the new episodes of fraud. The trap has snapped shut. Now the question is only when they will come for them. I look at the unfinished staircase and think about how strangely life works. I was building this staircase so people could climb up, and my wife used me as a step to fall into the deepest pit of her life. Danny flies in tomorrow. This will be the hardest conversation of my life, but after it, I will have no more secrets. Update. That was the longest 48 hours of my life, but it is finally over. The explosion I was waiting for finally happened, and the shockwave took out everything that was left of our past. If you thought this story would end with a quiet divorce in a lawyer's office, then you do not know people like Jennifer and Scott. They do not know how to leave quietly. They burn out, trying to take everyone down with them. Yesterday I picked Danny up from the airport. When he walked out of the terminal, I saw how much he had changed. This was not the same boy we sent off a couple of months ago. He looked tired and anxious. When he saw me, his face fell. I understand his reaction. After all, I look terrible, unshaven, in work clothes, having lost a few pounds on a diet of nerves and cheap coffee. He got into my old pickup, and the first thing he asked was why I am living in the workshop and why Mom says I abandoned the family. I did not dodge the question. I just silently handed him the thick folder Mike had put together for me. We sat in the airport parking lot for about an hour. I stared out the windshield while my son read the history of our family's crash in numbers and facts. He saw the bank statements, the transfers to Scott's accounts, copies of the promissory notes against the house equity, and, most terrifying of all, the printouts of the emails. I saw his hands gripping the paper when he got to the part where Scott calls him a useful idiot who will help cover for them against me. Danny did not cry. He just got paler and quieter. When he finished, he closed the folder, looked me in the eye, and said he wanted to go home. Not to the workshop, but home, to Mom. He said he needed to hear it from her. When we pulled up to our house, it was total chaos. The garage was open, boxes were scattered on the lawn, and Scott's rented G-Wagon was parked at the entrance with the trunk open. We could hear the screaming even from the street. It was not a normal family fight, it was the sound of panic. Jennifer was screaming so loud she was losing her voice. Danny and I walked in through the garage. The scene inside was pathetic. The living room was half empty, things were thrown everywhere. Jennifer was running around the room with a bag, throwing everything into it, from jewelry to electronics. Scott was standing by the window nervously calling someone, but when he saw us, he dropped his phone. Jennifer froze. For a second, she tried to put on her usual mask of the caring mother. She rushed toward Danny with her arms open, babbling that she was so happy to see him, that Dad had told him nonsense, and that everything was not what it seemed. But Danny did not move. He did not hug her. He just took a step back and held up that folder of documents in front of himself. He asked her if what was written in those papers was true. He asked if it was true that she stole money from his college fund to give it to this man. Jen tried to lie. Out of habit, on reflex. She started saying these were investments, that it was for their future. But Danny interrupted her. He asked about Scott. He asked if she knew that this man was laughing at him in their emails. Jennifer stumbled. She looked at Scott, looking for support, but Scott was not looking at her anymore. He was looking at the exit. In that moment, the mask fell. Jennifer realized her son knew everything. She started sobbing, accusing me of turning the child against her, of poisoning his brain. It was a disgusting sight. She was not asking for forgiveness, she was looking for someone to blame. And then Scott made his move. He realized the game was over, there was no money, the house could not be sold, and now a witness, the son, was here too. He grabbed his gym bag and headed for the door. He threw at Jennifer that he had had enough of this circus, that she was a crazy hysteric, and he did not sign up for family drama without the money. Jennifer latched onto his arm. She begged him not to leave, screaming that they could fix everything, that she would find the money. It was the most humiliating moment, watching my wife, a proud business lady, groveling before a petty crook who used her. Scott pushed her away hard. Jennifer fell to the floor, hitting her shoulder on the sofa. Scott stepped toward the door, but he did not make it out. The driveway was lit up by red and blue lights. Mike was not joking when he said the trap had snapped shut. He leaked information about Scott's location to the feds that morning as soon as we confirmed he was still in town. 2 officers and a man in plainclothes were already coming up the porch. Scott tried to bolt through the back door, but they were already waiting for him there. We heard him cursing, heard him being taken to the ground, heard the click of handcuffs. A minute later, they walked him past us. He did not look like an alpha male anymore. He was pale, sweaty, and whining that this was a mistake and he would file a complaint. Jennifer sat on the floor in the middle of the destroyed living room. She watched them take away her soulmate, her ticket to a beautiful life. Then she looked at me. Then at Danny. There was terror in her eyes. She realized she was alone. In a house that does not belong to her. With debts she cannot pay. Without a husband. And, worst of all, without a son. She tried to get up and approach Danny. She started saying that she was a victim too, that Scott tricked her, that she just wanted happiness for all of us. She was trying to rewrite history on the fly, to turn from a predator into a poor sheep. But Danny looked at her with a gaze that held neither love nor hate. There was only emptiness. He told her that he needed to pack his things, and that he would stay with me at the workshop until he flew back to college. He said he did not want to be in the same room with her. That was the finale. I saw something inside her break completely. She did not scream, did not argue. She just curled up into a ball. I told her she had a week to vacate the house. Mike had already filed eviction papers since she violated the terms of occupancy and caused damage to the property by trying to sell it fraudulently. I told her she could leave the keys on the table. Danny and I gathered his things. I took my old toolbox that I had forgotten in the garage. We walked out of the house without looking back. Jennifer remained sitting on the floor surrounded by boxes of things she had nowhere to take. As we were getting into the car, I saw another car pulling up to the house. It was representatives from the bank. Apparently, the system worked, and they arrived to check the collateral on that bridge loan she had defaulted on. The vultures were flocking to the feast. We drove to the workshop in silence. Danny looked out the window. I put my hand on his shoulder, and he did not shake it off. That was a small victory. I lost the house, I lost 20 years of my life, but I kept my son. And I kept myself. I did not feel bankrupt anymore. For the first time in 6 months, I felt rich because I had something that cannot be bought with money, a clear conscience and the truth. And Jennifer was left with only her brand name bags and debts. Karma is not a mystical force. Karma is just the consequences of your own actions catching up to you when you least expect it. And today, it caught up to Jen at 200 miles per hour. Right now we are at the workshop. Danny is sleeping on an air mattress. I am writing this and drinking cheap coffee. Tomorrow a new chapter begins. There will be a lot of courts, there will be mud, there will be division of assets. But the worst is already behind us. I survived. I looked betrayal in the face and did not blink. Jennifer wanted me to be a spectator in her play of a successful life, but in the end, she was left alone on stage in front of an empty hall when the curtain fell on her head. And you know what? I do not even want to stay to watch the bows. I have work. I have a son. And I have a life that needs to be built anew, board by board. Final update. It has been 8 months since the night the police took Scott away in handcuffs. I am writing this sitting on the balcony of my new, small apartment. It is right above my shop. It smells like cedar and fresh coffee here, not expensive perfume and lies. We sold the house. Actually, I sold the land along with the structure to a developer who tore everything down to zero to build 2 cottages there. I did not care about the walls. I wanted to erase the memory of that place. I put the money from the sale into a new trust, but this time in Danny's name. No one can touch it anymore, not even me. Scott took a plea deal with the investigation. He gave up all his accomplices and got 8 years in federal prison. I hope he finds an appreciative audience for his coaching sessions in there. And Jen got exactly what she was so afraid of. An ordinary life. The bank took everything. Her car, the remains of her savings, her reputation. Her realtor license was revoked for ethics violations and participation in a fraudulent scheme. Recently I went to the mall to buy a gift for my niece and I saw her. Jen is working behind a cosmetics counter in a department store. She has aged 10 years. Her signature gloss is gone, her eyes look dull. She saw me, and for a second her hand trembled. I thought I would feel bloating. Or anger. Or pity. But I felt nothing. Absolute, ringing emptiness. As if I was looking at a stranger. I just nodded to her and walked past. And in that moment I realized that I had healed. Hatred is still a connection. But indifference is freedom. Danny came to visit for the holidays. We talked a lot. He forgave his mother, but he talks to her rarely. He told me that he is proud that I did not break. For me, those words are more important than any millions. I am not looking for a new relationship, for now I am good on my own. I am building staircases. I am building my life. And for the first time in many years, I know for sure that the foundation under me is real. And now I have a question for you. An honest question. Some of my acquaintances say that I acted too harshly. That I should have warned my wife that Scott was a con artist even before she signed the documents for the loan. That I allowed her to destroy her life for the sake of my revenge. I believe that I simply allowed her to make her own choice and face the consequences. But what do you think? Was I obligated to save a woman who planned to leave me with nothing? Where is the line between justice and cruelty? Write in the comments, I will be reading every answer. That is it. If you like this story and want to keep listening to even more real stories like this, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you do not miss new episodes. Remember, your support is very, very important for the channel to keep growing.